style of singing that had its heyday in the period in which this music was written, and I would give anything to hear those singers. And unfortunately we can't, but from what people write, we can gather that they were extraordinary performances, that people swooned in the aisles and fainted and adored these artists, and so we're striving for the same thing now.
Well, you better warn the medical staff.
But they wore corsets in those days, and we don't wear corsets anymore.
But it was the corset, she said, yes.
You've described bel canto as the ultimate challenge. Now you're talking about a lot of things. Are you talking about the ultimate challenge, Renee, is the vocal point of view, or is it getting all of it together?
Well, it is all of it, but primarily it's the vocal. It requires the largest range that one can find, from very often. I think on the recording that's out this month of mine called Bel Canto, I think there's close to a 3-octave range on it, and it really needs, or 2.5 octaves. It needs everything you can put in, plus the kitchen sink, because it wants brilliance, coloratura. It wants heart to be broken with the slow cantabile cavatinas, which require all of the art that is required in Mozart singing, an enormous perfection of tone, quality, intonation. And on top of all of that, one has to tell a story that can very often be silly. When I sang Lucrezia Borgia, I thought, God, this woman poisons her own son by mistake, and every time she gets mad at somebody, she poisons them. One has that, you want to giggle in some of these operas. One of the reasons I chose El Pirata is because it's actually quite a good story. It would make a good romantic novel. It's not particularly funny. It's really has a consistent through line. There are 2 male romantic leads. That's really why I chose it. I guess the baritone and the tenor. And the baritone is, of course, a little bit of a villain, but not really. His situation is understandable. And do you want me to tell you briefly? Please, in a nutshell? Okay. Their history is that this young woman is in love with the pirate. He becomes the pirate. He is actually a nobleman who, through war, is pushed out and he becomes a pirate. She's then forced to marry the Duke, who threatens her with the death of her father, who is in prison, if she refuses to marry him. So, talk about being between, I'm going to say it wrong, a rock and a hard place. And she marries him. Meanwhile, 8 years later, and she has a child. There's a child in this opera, too, lest our hearts not be broken enough. So the pirate comes back 7 or 8 years later and says, okay, I'm back, let's go. And she says, I'm really sorry, I can't go with you now, I'm married. And it's a shame, but you have to understand, I had no choice. My father was going to die. And he doesn't accept that, being an Italian male. Just kidding. No, you're not. And he denounces her and says, you're going to have to come with me anyway, and it's too bad. And she says, no, really, there's no, and I love this line, she says, there's no beach or no shore long enough, wide enough